All right, my English teacher friend. So I have yet another Hammer and Home the Thesis video for you in which we're going to take a look at some Oscar-nominated shorts to solidify writing FRQ1 and FRQ2 for the AP Literature and Comp exam. And I got a fun one for us in this video. It's entitled, There is a Tune in My Soup, and it's by Front Room Production. So it's not Oscar nominated yet, but I'm anticipating that it will because it's a brilliant film. So there's a Tune in My Soup, and that can be found for free on YouTube, and it's by Front Room Productions. So it's a quick one. And I like it, especially in terms of preparation for the our infamous octopus friend from the 2022 exam. It's a bizarre short film, and the kids really need to exercise their breadth of abilities to be able to answer the question, what is the authorial intent and how does the author construct meaning? And it's very wide open to a wide variety of interpretations. And I like it as good fodder in preparation for tackling that 2002 FRQ2. So without further ado, let's jump right in. As always, I say this in every single one of my videos. I'm that guy that's pedaling around the following question in ELA circuits. What if we taught composition like Bob Ross teaches painting? There's a seismic difference pedagogically, just in terms of philosophy, seismic difference between the assigning of writing and the explicit direct teaching of it. So I always espouse the idea of taking a Bob Ross approach. And what I mean by that is getting right up to the proverbial easel and canvas and painting these samples and exemplars with your students. You're the expert writer in the classroom. Be brave, be bold, assume your inner Bob Ross, and show your students how to manipulate these templates. So in order to get your students to write at the caliber that you're going to see in these exemplars and models, samples that my students did, it took months and months and months and endless hours of me getting to that easel, getting to that canvas, and painting with them. So at this stage of the academic year, we're a couple of months away from taking the exam, and students really don't need me to model anymore. So I wean them off of that as we progress throughout the academic year. So the first question is this: how do I construct the introductory paragraph? So we're doing FRQ1, FRQ2 for AP Literature. I always give my students two choices: declare or invert. And for those of you that are familiar with my work, you know that we're going to approach these tasks as literary analysis. So we will be inverting the thesis. So we use declarative for rhetorical analysis, and then the other expository modes of argument, persuasion, synthesis, and research. It's a 50-50 flip, coin flip between declarative and inverted, really contingent upon the prompt and the tone that you want to establish and your positionality within the thesis. But for literary analysis, we always invert. So here's my contention. If we go back to like 1970 and go all the way to the present and take a look at FRQ1 and FRQ2-esque type assignments, because it's changed over the years, I find in those prompts implicit two questions. What is the authorial intent and how does the author construct meaning? If students can ascertain a correct reading of the text, and I love to tell my students that there's a correct way to read it, right? You just can't make up and invent reads. They have to be grounded within the text. So if they can ascertain a correct read, while answering these two questions, they're pretty much guaranteeing themselves the thesis point. So what is the authorial intent and how does the author construct meaning? So there's a couple kickers to this. Within my template of the declarative and inverted thesis, I always advise my students to write 4 sentences. So the introductory paragraph always is going to be 4 sentences long. Here's how I advise them to do this. Well, they're going to invert the thesis. And what I mean by that is this: they're going to take 3 sentences to answer the question, what is the authorial intent? So some teachers refer to that as the universal truth, the universal theme, the exigence. However you want to phrase that is totally up to you. It's your prerogative. I say, what is the authorial intent? So 3 sentences focusing on that. It's kind of like a thematic overview, a truthiness overview. And then the last question, whenever you answer the question, how does the author construct meaning? That's your thesis. So we're going to end the 4th sentence by answering that question. And this is where you're going to see my students use their terms, devices, techniques. So make some kind of literary argument within that last sentence. So it's always 3 plus 1. And when we diagram it, it looks like this. So it literally looks like a triangle. So you begin with your thesis when you're declaring, and then as you funnel it down, you sprinkle in your context and background, bring in your tier 2, focus on your sentence constructs, 4 sentences. But we're going to ignore this one because this is for other expository modes. So let's get to what we're going to focus on. So this is the inverted. You just flip the declarative over on its head. So you're going to start off, what is the authorial intent? 3 sentences of that. As you funnel down towards the 4th sentence, boop, how does the author construct meaning? That's going to be your thesis statement. So by context and background, I really want to qualify this. And I don't want students to regurgitate any of the story or the poems. In this case, the short film. Don't give a Cliff Note synopsis of it. Just a little bit of thematic context and background to cushion the fall of the terms and devices. And then tier 2 and sentence constructs are part of some academies that I run with my students, and I delve deep into this with my National Writing Project professional developments. Tier 2, I simply mean tier 2 level vocabulary. It's your average run-of-the-mill SAT caliber words. So it's an academic task. So students need to cop some certain academic level of vocabulary as they write. I don't want them to sound goonish. I don't want them to sound pretentious or contrived. So a good teeter-totter balance of that academic, but stay in your wheelhouse. I don't want kids to think that or espouse the notion that the more $1 million words they use, the better they're writing. So sometimes we really got to disabuse students of that. When I read anchor papers and student samples from the exam, see a lot of kids trying too hard with their vocab. It's actually a good idea in terms of going for the sophistication point to bust out a little bit of colloquial and vernacular if the prompt fits that. So I like it when my guys teeter-totter balance, the tier 2, the colloquial, the vernacular, just a little bit. Sentence constructs comes from our study of Strunk and White's Write It Right. They have something called rule number 18, in which they suggest that there's 12 different ways to cobble together a single sentence. So you'll see in these student samples that my students do a nice job of manipulating their syntax for the hopes of achieving voice rhythm and flow. One of the things I see early in the academic year, even from some of my better writers, is the overuse of independent clauses and short, simple declarative sentences. So there's like a droning rhythm when I read their work. It's like da-da, 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 and I'm sure that you've seen that in some of your struggling and emerging writers. So to break that pattern, we do a concentrated study in the Nuance Academy of how to wield all 12 of those sentence constructs. It's a lot of skill and drill. And then, as I've already alluded to, exactly 4 sentences. So let's take a look at how some students do this. Again, we're going to go 3 plus 1. 3, what is the authorial intent? 1, how does the author construct meaning? So in this last sentence, we're going to get hit with the terms, the devices, the techniques. So here you start with the exigence, the universal theme, the universal truthiness of the piece. In a world that is split down the middle between the glass half full camp and the glass half empty folks, it comes to no surprise that some people actively strive to keep happiness at bay and out of their lives. So we did a Socratic seminar of this and kind of debriefed the film. And a lot of people said, we're not talking about music, we're talking about something else. And it's kind of like the octopus passage. Are we talking about an octopus, or are we talking about something else? So you kind of have these like allegorical underpinnings here in this. And that's what this student is getting at here, is that you're not really talking about music literally. So going on, music, a pure form of happiness, is something everyone needs for their soul's nourishment. However, this being said, some individuals are so inclined to their self-imposed misery that they shut out the sunshine of the spirit. So we're 3 sentences in. Let's get the terms, devices, techniques in here. Typically, I tell my students to focus on the 2, maybe 3, but don't make it a literary terms dumping ground. So the 2 like most salient terms, devices, techniques in the film or in the poem or in the excerpt, right? FRQ1, FRQ2. So look what this student did. In the short film, There's a Tune in My Soup, Front Room Productions metaphorically depicts that no matter one's effort, it's impossible to prevent happiness and joy from penetrating one's life. So this is the big thing. It's an extended metaphor, and that's the most salient aspect of this piece, is the extended metaphor. So this student said it nicely, and then if they're to proceed through the rest of the essay, they'll get the bit parts in the body paragraphs in the first premise. So that's example number 1, 3 plus 1. Let's break it down real quick. So take a look at this second sentence. I love it when students can do this. The start, pause. Music, a pure form of happiness. So I like that. It's really good. However, comma, so nothing, outrageously extreme with the syntax, but it's all varied in terms of its flow and its rhythm. The vocab is up, but not overdoing it. And you can see that my students oftentimes will even sprinkle in a little bit of colloquial and vernacular. And I think that's crucial in getting that unicorn point, the sophistication point. I think kids need to kind of oscillate between those tones and those balances of diction. I think it bodes nice for them. So student number 2 steps to the plate and does a 3 plus 1. One good thing about music, when it hits you, it makes the soul soup taste a whole lot better. So you start with the universal truth, the universal theme, the exigence. And you can see here they're kind of borrowing a Bob Marley line here, but switching it up. It's pretty cool. Spunkiness. For the average individual, they spend their lives trying to fill the God void with things that make them happy. In essence, making oneself happy is like making soup with a wide array of ingredients. We're at the 4th sentence. Let's get to the terms, devices, techniques. Front Room Productions, however, metaphorically and symbolically suggest a certain panacea for all of life's woes. Music. Again, voice, rhythm, flow through those sentence constructs. Rock a little bit of tier 2, right? Don't overdo it. Stay in your wheelhouse and don't sound like a goon. Don't sound like a contrived Harry Potter character. In your wheelhouse. Stay in your lane with that vocab. And this student did a great job. So I think, out of the gate, student number 1 and student number 2, most AP readers would get to the end of this introduction and say, wow, if this kid can sustain this in the rest of their essay, I think I'm inclined to give them the sophistication point. This is how you swing it. This is how you wield it, right? This type of voice, rhythm, flow, this kind of pizzazz, this flair, cop that sort of diction there, and it bodes really well for the kids. Student number 3 is going to step to the plate and again, do the exact 3 plus 1. So check this out. Music is the magic elixir and secret alchemy that makes the soul soup taste mighty good. Without music, life is just rather drab and insipid, like a kitchen concoction that is flavorless and uninspired. But on another level, music is happiness and music is freeing, 2 things that some humans try to block out of their lives. We're at the 4th sentence, construction of meaning. This notion is explored by Front Room Productions both comically and metaphorically. Again, so you usually focus on like the 2 most salient terms, devices, techniques in that last sentence. So 3 different students all manipulating and pulling the strings of the same template. And one of the things that I talk to my students about is topically, what are you writing about? I mean, we're writing about these claymation creatures making soup and putting musical instruments in soup. It's very lighthearted. So you can take more or less of a lighthearted tone when you're writing. Makes the soul soup taste mighty good, right? So if you're talking about, I don't know, on the AP language exam, a very serious like MLK speech or something of that nature, like a Frederick Douglass speech. You're not gonna talk like that when you're dealing with something much more grave and much more serious. But if you have something flip, you can drop some colloquial and vernacular, and I think it really reflects well on the student when they can oscillate between that tier 2 and the colloquial and the vernacular. I think it looks very nice and it sounds very nice when they can do that. So this is a unique one. I hope you have fun with it, and know that if you have any questions or want to try your hand at doing some of these, you can email me at teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com for any general questions or queries. And also know that I am a lead teacher for the National Writing Project, and we offer a whole smattering of professional developments through Zoom and some in person over the course of the year. So you can check out all of our offerings at my website, teachinghowtowrite.com. I also have a shop in there where you can get some things, some goodies for your teaching arsenal. It's kind of like a teacher pay teacher sort of thing, but it's I house it on my site. And so hopefully you can use this and have some fun with it. Be well, happy teaching, happy writing.